Welcome back to day 2 of our daily Advent Devotional, 25 Days of Hope, our Christmas devotional, and I'm in yet another spot today, but let's jump right in. Today we're going to start off in Jeremiah 29:11. And it reads, "For I know the plans I have for you." This is the Lord's declaration. Plans for your well-being, not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. And I wanted to point out that actually when I'm reading from my big Bible, I'm reading from the Christian Standard Bible. And in my book, I'm using ESV, which is more my preferred one. And probably in the next coming days, I'll make sure I switch over to that one when I'm reading the text here. But yeah, what does this mean? Today's topic is God's faithful plan. And that scripture surmises it. God has a plan for us, and He has a plan for our life. And from the beginning, God's plan has been the tapestry of love, redemption, and hope with Jesus at its very center. Even when life feels uncertain, we can trust that His plans for us are good, filled with purpose and promise. Jesus' birth reminds us that God's faithful plan is always at work, even when we don't fully see it. And that's the beauty of God's plan. When you put aside your thoughts, you put aside your ways, and you seek in God and His face, you're able to have so much peace in that. And so this Advent season, I think it's just so abundantly important for us to think of what God's plan is. And no matter what the world thinks that you can do to, control your destiny, whether it's through the elections, whether it's through getting the right degree, getting the right certification, what the truth actually is, that God's plan has already been written, and we can trust when we seek Him that we can have perfect peace in whatever happens and for all of our days. And what wonderful peace is that. So the reflection question for today I have is, how can trusting God's plan bring you hope? How can trusting God's plan bring you hope? Well, for me, by trusting God's plan, I know that He is, as the scripture tells us, His plans that He has for me is for your well-being, not for disaster, and to give you future and a hope. So I know that whatever His plan is, it reaches into the desires of my heart. And we know that Christ came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And by Him reaching into the things, have you just thought about some of the things that you wished and hoped for in your youth? And dang, I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm happy things did turn out the way they were supposed to. Great example of that, I remember I wanted to get this apartment on the water, and it took some type of approval so I can be in the workforce housing program where I can get the rent for 75% of the market rate, and I was going to be right on the water. And they called me, they picked me, and so I went up there with all my paperwork within, we had to do it within hours, and I gave them everything, and it was just perfect. It was I got this new place. I was on Pinterest picking out pictures and furniture and everything for this little studio apartment, that I was going to be paying $1,500 for, but it was worth $3,000. And people called me back and said I failed the background check. I'm like, what? The background check? And there was clearly a mix-up, and I tried to emphasize this to them. I sent them a letter. They didn't care because they knew they could get someone else in there. And it was just completely false. It was what is this? And sometimes you can wonder, what things should you fight for, or what things should you just let go of and let God, maybe this is God's plan. Well, that was probably in May. And then after a while, I said, you know what? I'm just going to buy me a condo, buy me a place. And I went, and I was okay, this probably will take some time. Literally within 5 months, I was putting in an offer on my first home, and had I let my plan steal my joy, bring me into a depression, I can't have a nice place, I would have just stolen and voided myself of joy. Because one thing about God, He had a plan, and that was how I was able to purchase my first place. Because because of that setback, I was motivated to look into other things, and I was able to get that place and pay. My mortgage was so small over there, and it's such a blessing that, so that was through another program, a first time homebuyers program, and so that was still a blessing. And so anyway, just thinking about God has this divine plan for us and this divine order for us, and then that's how we could have hope. Because so if you come into any obstacle in the new year, or even coming into an obstacle even during this Advent season, that's what you can have hope in, God's faithful plan. You know what? I know this thing that comes up, this no, I just heard from here or there, or this delay, it's a part of God's plan. And we hear those stories all the time where a person goes and they might, miss by a hair, being in an accident, or I was supposed to be on this plane, or whatever the case is, and just divinely it was missed, because God has a plan, and His plan is going to trump any plan that we might have. So that's the lesson for today. So I want you to go ahead and leave a comment. And again, this is all from Daily Advent Devotional, 25 Days of Hope, available on Amazon, but we're doing it together here on YouTube, and I'm going to try to post this every evening. But anyway, so you can purchase it or don't, but it's by me, Danielle Thomas, and it's available on Amazon. And so I do want to point out the question, reflective question: how can trusting God's plan bring you hope? And leave a comment. Tell me your story of how one day, you thought your plan was the right plan, and then God intervened, or didn't intervene, but God's plan trumped, as it always does. I would love to hear that story, and also think of ways how can trusting God's plan bring you hope. And again, I'm Danielle, and I'll see you tomorrow at day 3.